we're going to go through a demo of the actual application. So Derek is going to give you an overview of the application, the way how a reliability engineer would use it to access the strategies and then apply them to the actual assets in terms of maintenance. And then after that, I will talk about how this actually is installed and set up from an administration perspective. Derek?
Thanks, Krishna. So as Michael said, you're going to access the reliability strategies through the asset application in Manage. So if I go to the asset application, you can see I have a reliability strategies link. I'm going to open the reliability strategies application. And now I'm going to be able to select from those 800 assets that Michael talked about. So if I look at this first column, I'm going to select an asset, a kind of a grouping of assets. You can see there's quite a few groupings that encompass all 800 assets. Everything that you would find in an industrial facility, essentially. I'm going to select a pump. And then you'll see I get now some more specifics about that pump as well. So I'm going to select a centrifugal pump, and then now I can see some specific configurations of a centrifugal pump, depending on the design type, what kind of peripheral accessories it might have. In this case, I'm going to choose this one. It's an axial split case pump with a mechanical seal, has radial bearings, and it uses oil for lubrication. So once I've selected that, my next step would be to hit this Get Strategy. Michael talked about RCM studies, FMEA studies, some of the barriers that our customers face in performing them around resources and time commitments. And essentially, when I hit this Get Strategy button, what I'm going to get access to now is a full RCM study for this asset. So, what might take a customer, 600 man hours to perform, I'm going to have access to now with the touch of a button. So if I select the Get Strategy now, what you'll see is I'm going to open up with 3 tabs. I'm going to land on the Overview tab. I'll give a quick tour of these 3 tabs, and then we'll jump into them in more detail. The Overview tab is just going to give me some statistics around failure modes and how many mitigation activities I can perform, along with a boundary that describes the pump. So as a user, I can look at this boundary, make sure that this fits the definition of the asset that I want to analyze. The Failure Modes tab, again, is going to give me access to all those failure modes associated with this type of an asset. And then again, the mitigation activities, this is where I can really start selecting what is my maintenance strategy, how am I going to prevent this from failing, how often should I perform these tasks based on the context, the operating context that my asset is in. So again, Overview tab, boundary, some statistics, in this case, 119 failure modes, along with 10 mitigating activities that I can perform to prevent failure. So really now what I'm going to do is let's look at how we would implement a maintenance strategy for this horizontal centrifugal pump. If I look at the Failure Modes tab, you're going to see I'm going to get a list of all the failure modes, and this is kind of a tiered list. What I'm looking at initially is the subassemblies or failure locations for this asset. So you can see impellers, lube oil system, etc. If I expand into the lube oil system, I can see now what are all the mechanisms that could cause this to fail. And I'll look at, say, clogged filters and strainers is something that I'm interested in. I see now what would cause those filters to be clogged, again, contamination of wear particles. So when I select this kind of final level of this failure mode, I populate this screen on the right as well. So you can see, again, I selected contamination of wear particles. That's related to overall my lube oil system. Clogged filters and strainers, that happens due to contamination. Also get some information on what are stressors that could accelerate or trigger this failure mode. So based on how I operate this equipment, there may be some conditions that would trigger this failure mode or accelerate its occurrence. Again, wear out time describes how fast that progression to failure would be expected to occur for this failure mode. And then the functional failure really is kind of the effect of this failure mode. How quickly is it going to occur? Can I discover it, etc. I get some information about repair time. So how long would it take me to repair this if this occurred? And then discovery opportunities would be ways, and they could include some of these mitigation activities, but also other ways where this degradation or failure mode would be discoverable. And what you see on the bottom here then is all the mitigation activities that could assist me in detecting this particular failure mode. So every one of these is tied to, every one of these failure modes is tied to all the mitigating activities that could possibly detect or mitigate it, as well as how effective each one of those tasks could be at affecting it. So think of high, if I see high effectiveness, that's almost a sure thing that if this failure mode was occurring, I perform this task, I've got a really, really high probability of detecting it. Medium is slightly less than that. And then you'll also see a low effectiveness on some of these tasks as well, which means I have about a 50-50 chance. So I'm going to select one of these tasks now. In this case, I'll select the oil filter change, which applies to this. And that's going to lead me over to the mitigation activities tab. So what you'll see again on the left-hand side is a list of all of the potential mitigation activities that I could perform on this asset. You can see highlighted is the oil filter change. And I also get a recommendation for how often I should perform this task. If I look at the frequency, if I click on the frequency tab, I also get an explanation of what some of the abbreviations mean. So 2Y would mean 2 years, 2Q would mean every 2 quarters is how often I would perform that task. You can see also that I can select the importance of my asset, either critical or minor or non-critical, but I can also select how I operate it, what's the operating context that I operate it in. So a high duty cycle, a low duty cycle, or a severe or a mild operating condition. I can also understand what those mean and how I would apply them by clicking on this icon. It's going to give me my details for criticality. Then again, duty cycle, what constitutes a high duty cycle, what constitutes a low duty cycle, as well as what constitutes a severe or a mild service condition. You'll also see that as I select these, some of these intervals change. So I went from a critical pump with a high duty cycle to a low duty cycle, and the recommendations for how often I perform these tasks changes based on that. So, if it's a high duty cycle, there may be some tasks I want to do more often. Low duty cycle, I might be able to get away with doing those tasks less often. And then if I want to look across all of the combinations of operating contexts, I can see the entire template for the performance of these tasks. If I hover over any of these abbreviations, it's going to explain what that means. So a critical asset and a high duty with a high duty cycle operating in a severe environment. Next, if I move over to the right-hand side of the page, I'm going to get some information on the task now. So in terms of the preventive maintenance details, think of this really as the objective of the task. Why would I do this task? What's it designed to define and mitigate? So it's really the basis for what I would be performing this task. Again, the recommended frequency, how long, some estimated labor hours, how long would I expect this task to take? And then job plan details. So this is the high level steps that I might include in my job plan. So in this case, for an oil filter change, I'm looking for leaks while I'm there. I'm going to verify the proper operation. I'm going to check DP across the filter, etc. So I get some high level steps as to what that job plan should entail. And then again, for this task, I can look at what are all the failure modes that this task could possibly mitigate, and again, with the effectiveness for each one of those. So again, you can see my oil filter change. I'm looking at my lube oil system, clogged filters, leaks from various causes as well. And I can click on these and jump back to that failure mechanism over here as well. In terms of being able to move to creating PMs and job plans, I can copy this text, open the preventive maintenance module, and then paste this text right into the long description of the PM. Same with the job plan. So I can copy and paste. In the future, this will be an automatic push where we can push this directly into job plans and PMs.